Hi there, my name is Jessica Crow, and I'm the founder of Apogy, and Apogy is a change management training, coaching, and consulting firm. And this is our Change Leader Speaker Series, and I'm really excited to have on Amber Belongia. She is someone I have been working with for over a year, maybe longer than that, actually. And I really wanted her to come on the show to explain her experience, to provide some perspective on what it's like getting change management implemented, started, forming a function in an organization for the first time ever. So Amber, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. Little bio for people who are watching this video: what you do currently, how big your team is, how long you've been with the organization would be great.
I have been with my organization for a little over 6 years. In that time, we've expanded from a small team of 6 all the way up to over 200 associates international, both in the US and Canada. We've been through multiple acquisitions. I am passionate about 2 things, bridging efficiency gaps and leadership development. I think change management and the work that I've done with Apogy and with Jess has been life-changing, not only in my professional life, but in my personal life as well. So I'm eternally grateful for this.
Well, thank you for coming on here, because I think your story is going to be really powerful for so many people who are interested in bringing change management more front and center in their organization, and also making sort of a shift in the role and responsibility. So Amber oversees a team that is responsible for, like, they've got frontline contact center employees who are answering the phone when customers have issues. And as part of that, Amber, when we first started working together, recognized the need broadly at the organization to, how do we do things differently? How do we engage? How do we communicate and train and make sure our employees are empowered to do the things that we're asking them to do? And so, some of the background here too is because of where Amber sits within the organization, she's got a good line of sight into a lot of the work that other teams are responsible for. But when we first started working together, Amber, how well did your peers, your leadership team, your CEO understand or know about change management? Like, what was their level of knowledge in this area?
So this organization has grown very, very quickly, very, very, really heavy in the growth. So what we knew about change management is that we had the ability to put out fires. We knew how to identify the fire and how to really react. So all of our change management experience had been very reactionary. Mm-hmm. Something would happen, and then we would address, the fire, put out the fire, and then kind of move forward from that. We weren't really well versed in change management from our leadership team. We were very reactionary instead of proactive. So we had just been operating like that, and it wasn't it worked. It was successful. So I think identifying the need to shift some of those goals and some of those strategies was really important.
Yeah, because what you've done, the company, because it grew so quickly, part of it is putting out fires and addressing and being responsive. And then as you think about, like, how do you grow and scale and then also maintain the employee base, the culture, achieve the strategic objectives, you start to realize that, okay, if we had more thought around how we do this, how much better would our outcomes be? So that's, I think, has been sort of the big transformation that I've seen, at least in terms of how you're thinking and how your organization is thinking. And you've been able to apply some of that thinking to the recent acquisitions that you guys have had too, recognizing that it's not just the transaction, you're bringing together different people and teams. And one thing that you've done such a good job of with your team, and you mentioned this as a passion, is leadership development. How do you see developing people, developing your managers, your teams, as sort of core to the entire process of just being an effective leader of change in an organization?
So I think we're all leaders. I think everyone at every level in the organization is a leader in some sort of capacity. Some of them drive that into that leadership management pathway, and some of them drive that in that peer-to-peer, up, down, and across, kind of how am I managing things that are happening. So one of the things that we really focus on is identifying what people are passionate about, where their strengths are, and how to leverage those to address some of their opportunity areas. Where do they want to be? What is their goal, not just within the next 5 years, but what's their goal for next week? What are things that they'd like to see happen? What are things that really drives them? What do they get excited about? So when I can identify something that somebody really gets excited about, or they're thinking outside the box of what if we did this or what if we did that, we look at those as leadership opportunities. And so how do we kind of foster and water that so that they're growing in the capacity and they feel good at the end of the day. They feel like they've accomplished something. They feel like they're making a change and making an impact in the organization, whether that be customer based, whether that be peer based, or whether that even be leadership based. I had a really valuable conversation with my direct boss, and that made me feel good going home at the end of the day, which ultimately really results in a great customer experience, because happy employees are going to make happy customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you're, speaking to is fulfillment. When you feel fulfilled in your job, you're getting that leadership development, you're getting that coaching, that support, that changes how you show up and do your job every day. And it also affects how you respond and react to changes and pivots. And so you mentioned that you are putting out a lot of fires. How would your team have, if you have a team that isn't getting that development, isn't getting that support, how would they respond if something came at them that they weren't prepared for, like an unexpected change or an expected change, versus a team that feels connected, supported, engaged? Have you seen kind of both sides of that in your organization or kind of beyond?
So I think what we see a lot of in people is when they're met with a change that they weren't prepared for, that they weren't aware, ready, trained for, that takes them a step back. We're looking at an organization where we always consistently want to move forward, no matter what we're doing. So if you have employees who are feeling like they're taking a step back, feeling like they're not valued enough to have the information, that they're not validated because, I was really worried, or I had to abruptly be met with this thing that happened and I had to explain it when I was on my feet. I didn't feel prepared. I didn't feel empowered to have that conversation. That makes a huge impact. So you're looking at kind of what happens with those people and how do we better leverage that. So what we're seeing as we've kind of continued to train and really focus on change management just within my department alone, we're seeing a lot of those frontline employees who have been here maybe a year, maybe a week, saying, hey, what if we did this? So those what if ideas, those enhancements, those we can always make it better, that helps to propel us in moving forward, so that when we're met with those little fires that maybe we weren't able to manage the change effectively, they have less of an impact because we're empowering them and we're talking to them about changes that are coming, and we're enabling them to drive some of those changes at any level. That makes them feel more secure. It's easier to put out the little fires that are going to come our way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it, it sounds like what I've seen and heard about within your team too, is that because they feel supported, because they feel valued, even if the change isn't something that they're necessarily expecting, instead of resisting it and, it affects their productivity or their attitude, they're like, okay, how do we shift? How do we pivot? How do we stay focused on the goal, recognizing that this may not have been something that we were expecting, but we've got all these other things that are happening on the backside that are giving us that boost to show up the way that we would like to show up. I mean, there's also been changes that have happened that are expected, right? There are things that are going to happen. And even then, I would say how people respond in the moment, you're going to have a little bit of pushback, because whenever a change happens, it like disrupts our system and we have to take time to process it. And so much of what you're doing of pouring back into your team, the coaching and the development, it is such it's so important to creating change ready individuals, right? As kind of what I'm hearing you say as you're describing how your team is showing up when a change happens.
And I think recognizing when it doesn't go right.
Yeah.
Recognizing it when it doesn't go right. Where are we taking accountability for, where could we have done it better? And being honest and open and vulnerable to say, hey, we didn't execute this right, but here's our commitment to you, to our peers across the board, to say we're gonna work on it. We're gonna do it better next time. We're never gonna be perfect at it. And to say we're not gonna effectively execute everything at 100% all the time, but here's how we are gonna work to support you, to make sure that we're on the up and up, that we're continuously growing, and that we're continuously ready and willing to take the feedback to be better next time.
Absolutely. Well, now I got a tough question for you. And I think this is going to be a question that many people sit with and try to think about how to do things differently. What has been the hardest part about creating an understanding for change management, of creating a capability in your organization that understands and recognizes and consistently leverages the best practices of change management? What's been the most challenging for you? And you've made a ton of progress, but there's always room for growth, right? Like, what has been something that's been hard for you? And what are you doing to resolve it?
That's been most challenging for our team is recognizing how important it is, recognizing how important having these skill sets is, making it a priority to learn these skill sets will make our teams holistically better. Mm-hmm. And so when you have a team of, there are, 12 people on our direct management team for the contact center alone. So they're managing credit and collections. They're managing customer support. They're managing, incoming phone calls. So when I'm talking to the leadership team, I don't have time.
Right.
I don't, it's great, but recognizing how important it is. And, one of the things that we did was bite the bullet. We bit the bullet. We said, we're going to dedicate this amount to training so that we have people who are aware of how important it is, aware of what happens when we don't make change management a priority, mm-hmm. and understanding the impact that it has to the front line. And what was really enlightening is when the team did go through the training is they were able to look back and say, I can identify that we had a heavy turnover here because of the things that we didn't manage well from a change perspective. I can identify that this project didn't go as well as we could have had it. Maybe it didn't fail completely, but when in recognizing and looking back and saying, if I had these skill sets, I could have been a better leader for my team. Those are the things that were really, really valuable. And it's a hard sell to say, well, I've been managing change forever. I know, mm-hmm. how to manage change. Like, mm-hmm. It's good. We figure it out when we do it, and we just keep moving forward because that's what we've always done. Mm-hmm. But to get everybody to stand still for one moment and recognize, hey, I'm going to learn a new skill set because it's going to be valuable for me. But at the end result, to recognize how valuable it is for their teams and what that does for us as an organization has been huge. And it's a tough sell. It's a tough sell because it's, the putting out fires has worked thus far. Yeah. Why would we do anything different? And so to continue to recognize and say, if we dedicate a little bit of time over here, if we stop moving at 100 miles an hour, empower ourselves with these learning tools in our toolkits, we're good. We get better. But that's a hard sell, especially for a team that we do move very, very quickly. And we're used to moving very, very quickly. And so having somebody say, I need you to stop and I need you to dedicate the time to this and make it a priority, it's a little hard to swallow. Yeah. But at the end, it was really, really advantageous and they loved it. And they're, we're ready and we're applying the concepts in almost everything we do. And in conversations where I don't know that I necessarily would have brought up change management in that, right? But to have the team start to think and say, okay, well, are we doing this appropriately? Are we reactionary here when we could have been proactive? And are we making sure that all of our ducks are in a row when something does come up? And holding each other accountable for that. Yeah. Holding each other accountable to say, hey, you made this change and my team wasn't ready for it. Or if you could keep us in the loop, I need to be consulted on this, or I need to be informed rather than accountable or responsible. Those are valuable things that have gotten our leadership team to really band together and build better relationships themselves, which ultimately just makes us better as an organization. Absolutely.
So I've got to give Amber some major credit here too. So part of the reason what she's explaining, I actually came in and met with her entire leadership team and we went through change management training, and none of the members on her team are change management by title, but they all have this skill set. And she did this because her firm has had multiple acquisitions, mergers over the past couple of years. So lots of new leaders, lots of new teammates. And so she was realizing the way that we've always done it, the fires that we're putting out, it works until it doesn't work. And now that we're bringing teams together, like, how do we drive efficiencies here? And she saw this opportunity to up level the skill set through a combination of change management training, leadership development, and just, understanding that by increasing the awareness of why it's important to do things in a certain way, it benefits each other, it benefits our teams. And then you've got this really high performing team that is a combination of people from different countries, different companies that have been brought into the fold. And I would imagine, we love your perspective here, it really accelerated the connection that your leadership team has. So now they're working together in a different, more productive way. Would you validate that? Or do you think there's, what are your thoughts there?
Absolutely. They work better internally within the department, but they also work better with our internal customers, with the other departments. Right. They're able to get in front of things that they necessarily may not have done so before, and really start to have those hard conversations on, here's kind of where we need to be for my team to move forward with things like this. So can you, asking the right questions, coming from a place of service of, can you make sure that we're looped in going forward? Can we better partner on this? Having those hard conversations, which we kind of, we're operating as reactive again, to this is changing over here. So how are we going to ebb and flow? And really focusing on better partnerships and communication within the organization, department to department.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a leader once tell me, all business gets done through relationships. And so a core part of, yes, you can have the knowledge and skills of change management, but the real value is the connection that you're building with people, because that is how you're going to, do the important work that your team is doing, and supporting your business and serving as the face of your organization's brand. What, for somebody who is thinking about, how do I integrate the concepts, the understanding of change management into the work that I'm doing? Like, what's a good starting point? Or what tips do you have for when they're trying to do something and maybe things aren't happening as quickly, just based on your experience? Like, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's new in learning about change management and trying to implement it in their organization?
I think ask questions. I think really talk to the people who the change is impacting at your front line, and see, what am I doing well? What are we doing well? Where do we have an opportunity area? What's the feedback that you would give us? And be ready and willing to accept and hear that feedback, because some of it isn't going to be easy. We're not really great as change as a people, as a human race. We don't adapt very, very well, right? We've been really spoiled, and Amazon will deliver groceries to my house. Right. So I don't really need to go out and forage in the forest. So there's no need for me to adapt to that. So I think when change hits us biologically, there's a reaction. Then if you listen and you hear that from people, you can identify at least 1 to 2 things that you can change immediately, that you can better manage the things that are happening in the organization to help support the change, make sure that people have buy-in. A lot of people really want to be heard. And so when you give them that opportunity to provide feedback about what's going well or what's not going well, and if you identify one specific thing, so don't ask broadly of, how do you think we manage change? Well, you're not going to get a real lot of valuable feedback in that. But if you say, hey, we changed this process, what's your feedback? And it could be a very small conversation, 2 or 3 people, that will kind of start the ball rolling, to get that open and honest communication, identify where are the opportunity areas, and start small, start to focus on those things to say, when we do the next change, people felt uninformed, or people felt like they weren't consulted, or people felt like it was too much too quickly, and then adapt what that next action item is to better manage that at the end of the day on those people that it is impacting.
Yeah, that's really great feedback. And I also really want to reinforce that, what you said about small wins, because I've seen you build small win after small win after small win. And now it's created more of a, momentum behind, hey, here's how we should be doing things, not just within your team, which is a big team, but how do we do this at the enterprise level? How can we better work together as the team that reports into the CEO? And how do we do this? Because everybody plays a key role in the organization. So just to recap what Amber said, if you're thinking about, how do I leverage and apply the best practices of change management with my team, with my organization, ask questions, be willing to accept what you hear, the feedback, and make progress by focusing on small wins. I have no doubt that you're going to continue to innovate and improve process and improve the way that change works within your organization. And that will just continue to support the growth and expansion of the business, and ensure that you've got the right talent in place, that they want to stay there, they want to work there, because that's how it all fits together. So I think the quicker people realize what you and I realize, right, that how you treat, how you handle, how you develop, how you support your people, it has a direct impact on everything else, and change management is sort of at the heart of that. The better off we'll all be.
Yes, right.
Yes. Well, Amber, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. I'm going to share it with my community. I know they're going to learn a lot from hearing your story and just how important it is to be thinking about these things, whether you lead people or projects or large scale organizational change. There's always an opportunity to be thinking about the impact that you're having on the people that you're affecting, and how can you do things better to make sure that, things are working smoothly and you're not holding the business back, you're moving forward. So thank you so much for being on the show. And I look forward to watching your continued progress and innovation in the future.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.